That's good. Let's make that disappear. Let's go back to Mental Health Monday. Hi, you're with Scott. It's Mental Health Monday. It's midnight. It's always midnight. It's actually 8 p.m. GMT. This is your right ear and your left ear. It is mono, but it's nice, isn't it? When I was young, when I first started big school, I got given books. Sounds silly, doesn't it? I got given books. That was an ordeal for me, wasn't it? An ordeal. Why? Well, my parents were divorced, and so after school I'd walk home to my dad's house, and then most days from there I'd get picked up and go to my mum's house, and the next day I'd go to school. But some days I'd stay a weekend at dad's, and some days I'd stay a weekend at mum's. And then what would tend to happen with school would be you would need these big textbooks. They give you them. That's fine, they're free. Back in my day when I went to secondary school, big textbooks and a workbook to go with it, and you'd need that for the lessons, so that was straightforward. But you'd also need it at home for your homework, so that's also straightforward. If you live, most people with their normal lives, their normal routines, would just say, well, I leave all my textbooks at school. That's easy enough. They all go in the locker, and then when I need them for class, I get them out and I go to class. If I need them for homework, I take them home out of my locker. It's like my textbook storage device. Take them home from my locker, got them at home. Same with your workbooks, I guess. You know, it's always there in your locker. It's either in your locker or it's at home. You know, they're the two places you need them. You need it at school for your textbooks, so it's there at school so you can use them for your lessons, and leave them there when you don't need them, fine. But because of my system of sometimes going to one house and sometimes going to another, and because homework was allotted on a certain day, but the lesson that required the handing in of the homework would be on a different day, I could either leave everything at school and never take it home, because then it would be there at school when I needed it, or I could take it all home, but then I guaranteed I haven't got it when I need it to take it to school the other days when I'm not at that house to do the homework and take it in. That wasn't going to work. So I came up with this other system. Which was, I had a really big bag. It was like a kit bag. My old, the brand was Head. I believe many people have had a Head bag, haven't they, in their time? No pun intended. Got your Head bag. It was a big kit bag, the sort that robbers might use. And what I did was I put all my textbooks in that bag, all of them, and all my workbooks, and anything else the school wanted to give to me. Anything else. If they wanted to, chuck a few pamphlets my way, if there's a few letters needed signing. Big old bag. It was a big chuffer of a bag, that was. Big heavy. And I was only like 11 years old, so it was a bit heavy. And I just thought, this is my solution. I cart that from lesson to lesson. I cart it home again. Of course, some days I have to cart it to dad's house, and then cart it to mum's house, and then cart it back to school. And then other days I have to cart it back on the bus to mum's house, and then cart it back to, the different places I have to go with this massive bag full of books. And it was like a burden to me. It really, I didn't enjoy that. When I got to school, I used to sling it down, sling your bag down, and then I'd use it, get the book out for this lesson, go to the lesson, come back to that. I'd use it a bit like a locker. This bag of books, it got so heavy, my straps did start to break on it. My shoulder, I felt like I used to carry it on the other shoulder sometimes. And then we had this one day of school, games day. And for my school, God, I'll never forget this as long as I live. The games field was across the other side of town. I don't know how this had happened. Over the years, I expect land was expensive. Our school was situated in the centre of town. There isn't that much area that can be taken up with a games field in the centre of town. Maybe they used to have one, they sold it. We had a piece of land further out of town. So it involved a 15 or 20 minute, quite pleasant walk, 15 or 20. You'd have to leave from lunch. Instead of having a full lunch hour, you'd have to leave about past, get there in time for games. So you get less of a lunch hour, but you get to walk through the town. It was nice. Except if you're me and you have to carry your games kit, so that's another bag full of like rugby stuff and boots and and all that. You have to carry the clothes that you need to take to your dad's house if you stay in the weekend. So that's like another games kit's worth of bag. And then I had to carry this bag of books. I didn't have to carry the bag of books, maybe. Should have used the locker, maybe. But I built into my mind that I felt compelled to take every book that I needed for every lesson, every workbook that I needed for every homework, to the games field. So I carried this. It was such a chore. And I remember those walks because I struggled. I couldn't really carry the 3 bags. Couldn't really do it. I used to struggle all the way. And one of them was always dragging behind me. I used to try and get something. I used to convince somebody to carry a bag for me in exchange for crisps or a chocolate bar. It was always a struggle. And so I wanted to start Mental Health Monday with this little story this week, because looking back on it, the resolution to that in my schooling was I just struggled. As I got older, I needed fewer books because I did fewer lessons. Teachers were always cross at me because it turned out that my system wasn't that good, and quite often I'd leave things where I didn't need to leave them. I might have left a book at Dad's house. I needed it. I wasn't so consistent with having the right things at the right time, despite my system. So it failed me, and really I failed myself because I could have come up with a better system, couldn't I? I'll tell you what I could have done. I could have said to someone, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it wasn't the same for everyone. I didn't really realise that people, and when looking back on it, of course they used their lockers and they kept all their books at home, but I didn't realise that everyone didn't have the same problem. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't say to somebody, is your bag really heavy? Because mine's really fucking heavy. I'm carrying around all these books. Is there something you do that's different to me? I didn't tell anyone. I was carrying around all those books. So in the end, I just, struggled through it. That was school. That was way back when. But today, as a grown-up, now that I'm all grown up, now that I've got a nice microphone where you can hear my dulcet tones. I don't know what dulcet really means. I'll have to look it up another time. Now that you can hear me through the relatively cheap piece of kit that's made a massive improvement, thank you very much, patrons. Nowadays, if I felt that something was, a bit difficult or a bit off, I'd probably talk about it. I've learned that, I guess, now. I've learned that over the years. But I thought it was important to just bring that up as a start point. That I don't know why, really. I don't know. Well, because some of this is about me that we're going to talk about now. So let's keep talking about me. But we're talking about self-harm today. Let's pop that back up. Talking about self-harm. We need to do a disclaimer at the start of this as well. I'm not really supposed to talk about things on Twitch that are against the terms of service, and I have scoured the terms of service. So I'm not suggesting that you should self-harm. I'm not suggesting you should do anything that causes you or any other person harm. Not at all. I'm not promoting self-harm. Absolutely not. And that's not a disclaimer, because now what I'm about to say sounds like I'm going to. That's not going to happen either. But I just want to make it really clear at the start that we need to talk about these things. We need to be able to have conversation. And I don't want to say grown-up conversations, because I think children need to hear about them too. And when I say children, okay, I think maybe this might be a 13 plus. Maybe. Maybe I think 8-year-olds shouldn't be watching Twitch and listening to us. We're not going to describe anything too serious. We're not going to describe anything too serious. We're not going to show any pictures of anything horrible. But young people, school age, teenagers, anyone that goes to secondary school, they're in that age group that when we do the news, we'll look at, are being failed. They're the ones that are going through this. So if we don't talk about self-harm in a context on a platform where they can access it, if I'm going to be, because Mental Health Monday videos on True Binaural get monetized, yellow mark, you can't talk about these things, not safe for advertisers, come with a warning, those sort of things happen. So I stopped putting them on True Binaural. Anyway, we've got our own channel, which can be a problem channel on its own. Mental Health Monday YouTube channel there if you want to check it out. Freedom Anxiety is our latest video from last week. I've edited it a bit. We talked for ages, so it's massive. Doom scrolling from the week before there. They're starting to build up the lovely videos now with the nice thumbnails over there. That's our Mental Health Monday YouTube channel. yeah, what was I saying? If we can't talk about it, because YouTube doesn't want me to talk about it, YouTube would definitely flag this. I don't know what Twitch is going to be like. I've not talked about this sort of thing that directly before. Let's see how it goes. But I hope we don't get banned off Twitch, and I hope that it doesn't contravene the terms of service. They're my disclaimers, because I think it's really important that we talk about these things in an environment where these young people can be exposed to it. So maybe 13 plus on this video. I was going to also do a bit about how social media does not want suicide, self-harm content, and I was going to pick out, it would have involved me researching self-harm on social media. I'm not happy to do that. There were stories recently in the news. I'm not going to bring up the poor people and, you know, flag them up as like part of my, you know, in like a passing newsy sort of way, because I think they deserve more than that. But there was a case in the UK recently of a young girl who killed herself, and she was accessing a lot of self-harm content through Instagram, through TikTok maybe. There seemed to be an undercurrent of like self-harm positive or social media promotion of suicide. There was like this undercurrent story. So maybe I could do more in-depth research into that and bring up all these news stories, but I don't think we want to hear that unnecessarily. I think we want to hear about me. No, I don't think we want to hear that necessarily, and I don't think I necessarily want to do a lot of, didn't want to spend my time researching that specific, you know, going on the social media and looking at that stuff myself. I didn't want to do that, so I haven't. But it does go on, you can trust me. Wait, before we do the streamer and before we do the self-harm, I will just quickly highlight these news stories because it's stepping into the story, isn't it? So this is The Guardian, a news story from a place I trust that I'm not going to spend the money to support. You've read 5 articles in the last year. Can you give us some money? No, can you just keep providing the news for free, please? As a matter of public service. You've got adverts, doesn't that pay for things? Poor mental health leaves pupils 3 times less likely to pass 5 GCSEs. So what this, and it's a study, the British Medical Journal, school children, 1,000 of them, so not a huge number, but, you know, detailed enough to be called a decent study, I guess. It's telling us that poor mental health means you're less likely to pass, and in our country GCSEs are the important first stage exams that set you up for the next stage, A levels, which set you up for university. So that's quite an important hurdle to overcome, and if you've got poor mental health, you're less likely to overcome that hurdle, which of course is going to lead to further problems down the line, isn't it? It's massive. At this early stage, young people are being let down by our services in our country. I assume this is not just a UK thing, and it's causing something that we can all accept would be, you know, success or failure in your GCSEs. Looking back on it, I don't really care what my GCSEs were, but I know that at the time the success that I had in the GCSE arena made me feel, you know, it was a lot of pressure to get those GCSEs. I'll say that, a lot of pressure, and succeeding made me feel a lot of relief. But yeah, maybe I've effed up my A levels for this sort of reason as well. Maybe I've suffered educationally for this sort of reason, but it's there in black and white in the news, print media. I don't know how that's going to edit down. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to talk about that for like 10 minutes so you can put 2 adverts in, but I just wanted to raise it and point it out. I'll keep raising it and pointing it out at the start of Mental Health Monday until our system is fixed or I'm dead. And we're just saying that Sweet Anita here discussed it already on the internet. She was talking about scars on her wrist, and people were trolling her, basically, is the story here. And then she got cross about it and said, if you're mocking a 9-year-old for being abused, you're a cockwomble. Or it could be cookwomble, because they've obliterated some of the text there. So I don't know. It could be cookwomble as well. I don't know what she said exactly. It was rude. But she's cross because these people are like, no one's going to troll me for self-harming because we don't have that sort of chat, I guess. But isn't that bad? I think it's sad. And if she's trying to talk about these things publicly, then yeah, like, I think I wanted to just raise that as well at the start of this whole thing, that there are people on social media trying to, raise some of these conversations. Cause she got one of those play buttons in the back there. Those YouTube play buttons. I'm never gonna get one of them. I'll make my own one out of Play-Doh play button. What I wanted to say was, we've got good chat. That's what I'm trying to say. We've got good chat. We've got caring people who say nice things. But there is this symptomatic thing of, like, I guess, immaturity. And I guess if you're a streamer that's known mainly for your funny Tourette's, then, and that's not being insulting to Anita, who is, a 3D person with thoughts, feelings, drives, all the different emotions that we all have. She's not just a Tourette's comedy meme, she's a real person. So, but I understand that on social media, certain things, the algorithms, the clips, it's what it's generated is these bunch of people in chat who are looking for a bit of a sort of cheap laugh at what I suppose is somebody's misfortune. Tourette's, isn't it? Have a little jab at their little Tourette's thing. It might have helped her in a way to become so notorious, so well known, but in other ways it's her own struggle. So we all have our own things to deal with. You make the best out of life, don't you? I'm not critiquing her for having Tourette's, but certainly the idea that someone would mock her when she suddenly started talking about something really serious. I guess if you've cultivated, like I'm just trying to say, not just her but Twitch, if you cultivate this atmosphere where things are to be mocked, where people's real feelings are not really cared for or concerned, where meme culture and having a laugh at someone is more important, your clever joke is more important than their feelings, that sort of thing, then it doesn't surprise me that people have then started saying immature, silly things in chat. And she's got quite wound up about it. I don't think it would wind me up if someone said something silly in the same way, but then I've been through so much over the years now. Yeah, so we're going to talk about self-harm. We're going to talk about it through my prism as well. My prism, not prison. Don't worry. But yeah, I guess I have to outline my bit first. If you search YouTube for depression confession, I wonder if my video will actually come up. No. And it's titled just that, man. It's just titled that. Sorry, man. Person of non-specific gender. That was the patriarchy. Why doesn't my video come up? You'd think the logarithm would at least search out the thing that it was called and put it there. Lovely. Depression confession. True. It must come up now, mustn't it? There it goes. So if you want to hear me talk about my own experience of depression in a full and frank account, it's on True Binaural and ASMR. It's called Depression Confession. If you search for it, it won't come up. So I don't know how you're going to go. You have to search True Binaural ASMR Depression Confession. I won't put the link. You have to do it yourself if you're really interested. So I'm not going to go into every detail of all that now. It was too real. Oh, that's true. Yeah, of course. Nigel's just reminded me. He's right. That video gets a yellow warning. You can't monetize this. Not suitable for advertisers. So of course it doesn't come up when you search for it. It's not suitable for the algorithm. You're right. But that's me talking about my personal story, and I outline all the the things that happened up until that point. And then since then there have been more things that have made me depressed. But don't worry, things are cool. So that's there. I'm not going to go over everything now, but I wanted to say it was there so that I remember being a young kid and looking. This is different from the depression confession as well, so it's just some stuff that I think is important to. We're talking about self-harm. We're setting the scene. Okay. I remember being a young kid and looking at the battle-scarred heroes in awe. I genuinely saw something attractive in the strength of someone struggling against life. I think I identified with their outward symbols of this struggle. I'm reading it off my notes. As a kid, I think I was depressed because of the divorce and the turmoil before I really knew, could name these feelings. So what I've written there is about how, to me, Kurt Cobain was iconic. Like when I grew up, post-80s, euphoric dance music, like rave culture, this American grunge voice that I only discovered really on the cusp of his suicide. I think my friend at school, Dan, like, was into Nirvana, then Kurt killed himself. I remember he brought in this piece of paper from the news, Kurt Cobain has killed himself, and it, you know, he was not happy about it. I was not that deeply into Nirvana at the time, I think. I certainly understood more and, you know, heard more. This iconic image, you know, the battle. This is what I'm talking about. This, as a young person, seeing these battle-scarred individuals, seeing these people who had been scarred by life, who had struggled against it, and finding them to be romantically. I guess I found some sort of identity attachment in there that, you know, I could. It resonated. That's the word. It resonated. I loved war films like Full Metal Jacket. The description of a violent coming of age and young male camaraderie and aggression. I went to a boys' school. We used to do raps. I don't know if you know what raps are. You'd probably have a different word for it. You'd play a game, and a forfeit would be to have your hand beaten with the cards, like a card game. You play poker or pontoon or something, and if you lose, then you go chip with the cards like that on your knuckles, like, you know, like a little physical punishment forfeit system. You know, you might have played slaps maybe with your friends. You might not have done, because you might not have been trying to brutalise each other through your childhood. But I went to a boys' school. You know, we did raps on the minibus. We had group initiation as part of a bigger boys' crew, and it wasn't like a frat house thing like Blizzard Entertainment have been going through that mill this week, haven't they? It wasn't that bad, but it was there was a bit of a sense. I remember with fencing as well, because it was push yourself, train hard, physically compete against each other. Older boys being better, wanting to be as good as them, wanting to be in their peer group. So fighting for my position by physically fighting them on the piste, physically fighting them off the piste. Being tough, being hard is a different story. Being hard means, like, when I was young, people who were hard were going around starting fights and things. I'm talking about being tough. It's different. Survival. We're talking about being at a boys' school and, having to play rugby and things. I don't know, like, being tough was important. Being resilient. We talked about resilience in a previous episode, didn't we? I think that's what I'm driving at here. There were a few people I remember that were a bit of the opposite, and they fell by the wayside from these groups. The elite athletes that I wanted to be part of, to be seen with, had no real time for someone who's going to cry it off, who didn't want to take the raps. Being tough was part of that initiation into that. If you can be tough enough, we'll give you we'll listen to what you've got to say, and then we'll tell you to shut up for being stupid. But at least we'll listen. There was some part of that. Anyway, that's my own psyche, my own psychological perceptions growing up. I've got it in my notes. Life did scar me over the years. I didn't have to. I looked up to this iconic imagery and thought about the romance of. Maybe in America it might be a better way of understanding it would be to talk about the cowboys in the Western films, the strong silent men, the way Tony Soprano felt about that. The Sopranos, all these strong but flawed, maybe slightly aggressive or self-damaging is a good way of maybe saying it. Self-damaging, not concerned for the damage, take the flak. Through the war films, you do these noble things and take the damage. You end up with the scars, but they're noble scars, aren't they, in a way? This nobility of struggle is what I'm trying to describe. I found it, I've always found it romantically, I don't want to say appealing. It's not like I wanted to struggle. I didn't want to have to feel. It's that I did feel these things, so I saw these people who represented the things I felt and found something in that. That's the best way to describe it. And of course the sound of Nirvana as well. The sound of Nirvana. Describe the sound of how you feel when your parents have been arguing and one of them's gone out and you're about 9 years old and you're just in your bedroom. They could describe that. Even certain parts of this process, talking about these things, these films, these icons that I found romantic, was the way they were able to, even if not directly, they didn't write lyrics about what I was feeling, about being about being me, but they were able to write construct art that made me connect. So over the years, life did scar me emotionally and physically, and I didn't have to do it myself. I didn't have to gain these scars through some sort of I didn't have to go and put myself through a trial. I didn't have to go and throw myself off a mountain, or I didn't have to fight a war, like literally sign up to the army and go, oh, please don't knock the microphone, it sounds lovely. I didn't have to jump through any special hoop to get these battle scars that I had sort of idolized when I was younger. It turned out that I just got them over my life. So there you go, physically and emotionally. But of course, we're talking about self-harm today, aren't we? So I didn't have to do it to myself, but I did. I did want to say I had piercings and I've got a tattoo. I've got another. Maybe one of my tattoos was self-harm. That's another story. But piercings, being a punk, part of all that was like that wave was happening when I was young. There was a lot more piercing, I think. Maybe it was just the way I perceived the world. I don't know. But I had piercings, had a Mohican. So part of the things that we go on to talk about, I guess can kind of be part of, how am I trying to say this? I'm not saying that piercing is self-harm. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that you're prepared to do things that are painful in pursuit of something. Well, we'll see in what the pursuit is of in a little bit, but prepared to do these things more. Maybe it's an outward sign of look, I'm prepared to do this. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. So over the next 20 years, I self-harmed when I got emotionally distressed. Like, this is from being that young schoolboy with the bag, going through the raps, going through that process, learning about pain, it becoming part of culture, the piercings. Through this process, I know exactly really when it started, because it was when I started smoking, and there was a game where you could win the money by burning through the note on your hand with the cigarette, and of course you can't burn through the note, so you don't win the note, you just burn your hand. Notes are made out of cotton and shouldn't burn, but because I knew that I had this how do I say this, not psychotic, but this will, this iron will that would allow me to do that. I knew the rules of the game were fixed, so I couldn't win the note by burning through it, but I knew that I could burn through it just by going through that extra length amount of pain. So I would prove to them by burning through the note that I was, nobody else can do. Oh, isn't it funny? Look, you burned your hand, you didn't win the note. Oh, aren't you stupid? But I was just like, yeah, let's do this. Like holding your hand over the candle, that sort of thing, like playing chicken with pain. And I just did it. And then people were like, whoa. And it wasn't like a, whoa, I'm impressed by you. It was like, whoa, you're a bit I don't know. Maybe there was something in that response. Yeah, we're going to come on to why people do it. I've got a whole, we've got mind.org, and we're going to talk about, the serious and professional aspect, but I'm going to talk about my personal aspect a little bit more first. So yeah, I realised that I could, I'm getting distracted from my notes as well. But mainly, so what I was saying, from that first experience, quite young, through this parlour game at a party when cigarettes were around, I discovered burning, through experimenting with different pain. So I used to burn myself when I was in emotional distress. That's the kind of point I'm trying to make. And once I did it, I'm laughing, once I did it so badly that, because I've got this huge scar on my arm now, and it was really bad. And I was old enough to know better. I was probably 19, 20 at this point, and I had to try and hide it from everyone all the time. It was really difficult. It didn't serve me any beneficial purpose, and I used to hide these things as well because it wasn't like while we'll talk about cries for help and, you know, calling for attention and help with self-harm in a little bit. I didn't feel that I was doing it for that reason. I used to hide it from people. So I did that. It was usually out of desperation, and it became a habit after a relationship broke down or when I felt really depressed after an argument or something. I realised I was past it and that it was a habit, and I stopped. That's just an easy statement to make, isn't it? It took 20 years or something. If you're suffering from mental health, while we're talking, I'll move through these things again. Samaritan's waiting for your call. These things probably don't switch on and off overnight. You probably don't wake up one day and bang, I'm depressed today. That was it. Had a good life until then. And you probably don't start to cheer up and, work your way through these things overnight either. It's not a light switch that goes off and on. Like a light switch from on to on, I'm a thermulo-mic device, weapon of mass destruction. It's not like a light switch. It's not like that. So, I've lost my notes again. For me, it took the frequency died out. I stopped doing it as much until one day I was like, I've had a bad experience. Someone's dumped me, or I've broken up with so and so, or I've had a bad experience and I'm not doing this thing. And I thought to myself, I could do it, could burn myself, but quite equally, I'm happy not. Sounds silly, doesn't it? You could, or you're quite equally happy not. But for a while there, it wasn't I'm quite equally happy not. It was definitely happier doing it. Definitely happy doing it. Kurt Cobain stubbed out his cigarette with his forehead in an argument with Courtney Love. There you go. Maybe that's where I got it from. I never argued with Courtney Love though. Anyway, although I often wonder, I didn't know her, so although I often wonder, I do wonder this. I wonder if veganism or my self-imposed teetotalism isn't a form of self-harm, like a kind of denying myself basic pleasures of food and drink. Of course, it's for my benefit and for the benefit of the world as well, so maybe not. Maybe that is good. But I remember going through the process of giving up alcohol, and it was a struggle. I would have been easier, happier drinking. My being called out, say, get yourself a drink. Don't just put yourself through this. Get yourself a drink. That's what it was saying to me. But then I thought, we can go past that, So yeah, I will look later to see if it was whether teetotalism or alcoholism was a form of self-harm. I think probably the latter. I think alcoholism is the self-harm. Knowing something is doing you damage and continuing to do it. We kind of all do that, don't we? In different ways. So anyway, how did I stop? I did two things. I changed my life and made my life more fulfilling. And that's just an easy thing to say, but again, it's a big long-term goal and process. I'm still doing it. I realised that I didn't need a relationship to be happy, or that a better way of saying that would be, I realised that being in relationships wasn't working. Every time I ended up unhappy. If I can't be happy before I get into a relationship from here on out, I can't, it's only going to happen again. Let's just work on me being happy. Let's just get me, in a better place. Let's make me a better person. I guess that's the way to say that, isn't it? Yeah, it's fair enough. You want to improve yourself, don't you? And then we'll see what happens. But realising that not needing the relation, at that point I said, okay, I'm going to be happy, but not with or because of so-and-so. So-and-so's left me, I feel depressed, I feel sad. We've all been there. Maybe we haven't all been there, but God help us all. Things haven't worked out the way I wanted to in X, Y, Z. I feel bad. But knowing that I have to live a world where those things can happen and I still have to be happy. Brexit happened, I feel bad. I've still got to live, haven't I? I've still got to find a way to be happy and to accept things and to develop happiness in my own life. The chuffers. Yeah, exactly, the chuffers. So that was one important aspect. It didn't happen overnight. It was an important aspect, but not self-harming isn't an act that I deliberately did. I'm just not doing it anymore because I've got a different way of dealing with things, I guess. And two, I don't really know. I guess changes in life pressure. Things ease, don't they? Pressures. Things seem so massive when you're going through it the first time round. And everyone's a bit different, so maybe I don't know. Maybe there is something that happened that changed. Maybe a certain person or two made me feel differently. But certainly it has changed and I don't. So that's good. So that was me. It's official. I know. So this is what I've written. I know something like what you are going through. That's not good English. I know something about what you're going through. If you are going through one of these things that we're going to talk about, self-harm, today, then I know a bit about it. You are the one struggling, and it's not about me. But I don't have credentials, do I? I don't have like a certificate of psychology, although I did study psychology at university. I just dropped out a bit too early to get the certificate. I don't have that, but I know what you're going through. That's what I'm saying. And I did make an improvement. I managed to find a better way of going through life, so there is hope. I think that's a good overview. For the first hour of Mental Health Monday, we haven't even got into it. Let's get into it. Let's work through this. I'm going to stick to Mind because I think they do a really good job on their website of this. So I'm just going to stick to Mind here today for this bit. Maybe we'll all learn something because I deliberately stayed away from reading everything because I wanted to see if I learned something too. Certainly in the final bits, helping yourself, helping others. And maybe why you do it. Maybe other aspects to it. What is self-harm? Self-harm is when you hurt yourself as a way of dealing with very difficult feelings, painful memories, or overwhelming situations and experiences. Some people have described self-harm as a way to express something that's hard to put into words. I'm going to alight on these. I'm going to take time over it. Express something that's hard to put into words. Yeah, what a good... it's straight away. What a good... I can't even get the words, you see. What a good way of describing it. It's about material. For me, I feel it, through my experience, I don't want to talk about it in terms of me and mine, but because I've experienced it, I have to. I guess a better way of saying that might be, you might feel that it allows you to materialise. You see how this is empathy at work? Instead of talking about me and what I feel, I'm going to say you might feel it and think about how you might feel it. And I can still think about how I felt it. I can still think about it through my prism, but now I can apply it to you. So now it's about you, isn't it? This is empathy. That's how it works. You can't talk. Every sentence can't start with I. Otherwise, you're always talking about yourself. I think this. I think that. I like this. I do that. If you're suffering on Mental Health Monday, of course, it's about you. So you can use I. You can use I. But if you're trying to help someone, if you're trying to project into the world your hand for someone to grasp and hold on to, you can't keep talking about yourself. Anyway, at our age we learn societal expectations are silly and we can love our unions, but we don't feel some of the pressures. I guess as you get older you feel fewer of those pressures. But like I said, I was a punk as well. I always thought, like, F everyone else, F you. Anyway, look, expressing something that's hard to put into words. What I was going to say about that is that you materialise it, don't you? There's a word for that, manifest. You manifest it into the world. Like you create something. It might be destruction. It might be you destroy something. Destruction as a form of creation, as a form of expression, I guess I should say. You express something that's hard to put into words. Have you ever smashed something because you're so angry? The neighbours are having a fire. I wonder if they're burning all the evidence. You express something that's hard to put into words. I think that's a really good concept straight off. What is self-harm? I thought they were going to say, it's banging your head or hurting you. No, they're expressing yourself. It's an expression. It might be a way to turn invisible thoughts or feelings into something visible. Same thing. In a way. Change emotional pain into physical pain. Right, that's where I live. That's where I know how to deal. I used to feel like, now I can reflect on it and say I used to feel something that I guess overwhelmed me. But at the time I used to think, it's too much for me to feel. It's too much for me to, I can't, it's like giving yourself something hot to hold. You can only hold that for a certain amount of time before you need to put it down. And I used to feel I needed to put it down, but I couldn't because it was in my head, wasn't it? It was how I felt. So I was able to transmute that into a physical pain. Is transmute the right word? I was able to do something physical, and I guess it was like a super mindfulness, wasn't it? Suddenly I wasn't thinking about all that. I was really, in the this is the other thing. I didn't, with pain, you can hypnotise yourself not to feel it. You can get drunk and you don't feel it. There's ways of numbing it in a way, aren't there? But with this, I did feel it. Like I didn't sort of burn myself and look away and focus on. When I go to the dentist, I imagine myself on a beach somewhere, beautiful beach, and chewing on some cold ice, maybe a few sensations in my mouth. But generally, on that lovely beach, put myself somewhere else so the pain doesn't come through as the primary. It's not that with self-harm. It's not that for me. I was changing that emotional pain into a physical pain. I was able to distill it, to filter it down through into this. And then once that's done, like having a tattoo, you go through that pain, and once you've done it, you've got your mark and you've got your scar, and you can say, that was that. I felt that about that then. Now I can move on. Because it's physical, you let it heal. Once it's healed, you pick the scab, it's gone. It becomes a time reminder that you can literally see changing over time. It can, so some people have described self-harm as a way to reduce overwhelming emotional feelings or thoughts. Yeah, bang, I think I just described that. It can give you a sense of being in control. Yes, I will completely agree with that. That when you feel out of control, when everything's happening around you, when the things that are happening around you are making you feel the pressure, when you can't stop this or make them that or any of that, when you're alone with it, one thing you can control is when that pain starts and stops. I guess what you were saying earlier about numbing mentally, I guess there is something about this, maybe not a hypnotic sense of disassociation so you don't feel the pain, but a hypnotic sense of disassociation through self-inflicting the pain, because it goes against a kind of inbuilt survival mechanism. You shouldn't want to hurt yourself. You don't want, we all know, if you've ever tried it, please don't. But, poking yourself with a needle or something, I'm going to just use mundane examples because, come on. That you can't really push yourself. Piercing your own ears would be a good example. You can't really you need someone else to do the pain bit because you can't when it starts to hurt, you just stop doing it. Maybe if you're me, if you're somebody else, maybe you can do that. Maybe I can bite the bullet and just take the pain. In fact, that's something I was taught. Something I was taught about being tough. About biting the bullet and taking the pain. So it can give you a sense of control. Maybe it can help you escape traumatic memories. So things that, are making you feel really bad. Self-harm as a real life thing that's happening in front of you takes away from that in your head memory. That's like super mindfulness again, isn't it? I'm saying super not in a good way. It can give you something in life that you can rely on. Again, being in control. Doesn't matter what they're all doing and saying. I've got this thing that I know. I can do. I think that veers into something that we haven't talked about yet, but I guess we have to do an episode on substance abuse. I guess it veers into that, doesn't it? Something you can rely on. I wrote a song once that said, Mary Jane will never let me down. Cigarettes will always be there for me. Alcohol won't leave me alone. It's nice, isn't it? I'm going to just, self-serving, promoting myself, but I think my lyrics are nice there because alcohol won't leave me alone. And what I mean by that is not that it won't leave me on my own, which of course other people have and turn to alcohol instead, but of course it won't stop pulling at you either, will it? It won't leave you alone. It won't let you be. Yeah, Mary Jane will never let me down. Cigarettes won't lie to me, and alcohol won't leave me alone. Punish themselves for their feelings and experiences. So that's a slightly more, I guess, understandable aspect of it. It's a punishment. You feel like you're doing or letting yourself down or not coming up to certain standards. You feel like you should be punished. That's, crime and punishment, isn't it? You're doing bad things, you should be getting a telling off. Maybe you've got a guilty conscience. Maybe people have made you feel guilty. Maybe you don't need to feel guilty, but you do. However it is coming through, self-punishment is a part of self-harm. They say depression is rage turned inwards. Yeah, they say depression is rage turned inwards. Maybe I should sit closer to the microphone. Maybe I'm getting quieter as I lean further back as the evening continues. It can stop you from feeling numb, disconnected or disassociated. That's what I was talking about earlier. That dentist chair disassociation. When you see yourself doing this thing that you're pre-programmed not to do, you can kind of, people say it was like I was watching myself do something, like third person. You do something that's so alien to your nature, to what your natural psychology is telling you to do. At some point it seems like, am I really doing this? Is this really happening? And I guess that's how you feel about the traumas and the, again, bringing something that's hard to put into words into real life. Is this really happening? Yeah. Dissociation, dissociative disorders, and that's really we're not going to do disassociation now as a big thing, but it's its own topic in mental health. So becoming involved in that, using self-harm to drag yourself out of that, it's all interconnected and quite serious if that's the case. It can create a reason to physically care for themselves. That's interesting. That's really interesting. I never thought about it like that. It can create a reason to physically care for, like, if you've been emotionally wounded, people can't see it, they don't have any sympathy or anything, you just get on with it, don't you? But if you broke your leg, then put your feet up, have a biscuit. You can physically hurt yourself, and then you can allow yourself to feel better afterwards. I guess that's a funny cycle to be in, isn't it? I say funny, not funny ha-ha. Strange to think about, but quite normal for some people. It can express suicidal feelings and thoughts without actually taking your own life. I guess I recognise that as well. It's almost like a practice run. You want to know what it's like. You want to see what it feels like to stand on the ledge. You want to know what it feels like to see the knife go in. You might not be ready to do the full thing. Quite a serious topic that we're talking about there. I will remind you that this is Samaritan's free phone number if you're feeling suicidal. This is Lifeline in the USA if you're feeling suicidal. These are befrienders worldwide. You can always talk to us in chat, but if you want someone on the end of the phone that you can literally, tell all about it, even if you think you've made your mind up either way, it's better just to let it out, isn't it? Tell someone. They might help. So it's easy to see where suicide and self-harm tie together, isn't it? After self-harming, you may feel a short sense of release, but the cause of your distress is unlikely to have gone away. Self-harm can also bring up very difficult emotions and could make you feel worse. Even though there's always reasons underneath someone hurting themselves, it's important to know that self-harm does carry risks. Once you've started to depend on... Sorry for the reading. Once you've started to depend on self-harm, it can take a long time to stop. So they're saying it's a process, aren't they? They're saying it's a process. My body comes with a trigger warning. I didn't know how else to cope. I didn't like myself. If any of this brings up something and you want me to talk more deeply, you can pop it in chat. If anything for here like rings alarm bells with you and I briefly skip over it, sorry. But if I don't get through this today, we won't get onto treatment support and the important things won't be spoken, so I have to just briefly go over it. And maybe it's better that we don't talk graphically about some of these things. Cutting yourself, poisoning yourself, overeating or undereating. So eating disorders goes in self-harm. Excessively exercising can go into self-harm. Biting yourself, picking or scratching at your skin. Interesting, because with other mental health disorders, you may get anxiety rash. You may find yourself doing something, picking at or pulling at your hair and stuff. That can also be factored into self-harm. So it's going to be interesting as we look at this. So I'm just going to brighten up my face a little bit with the old eye. So it's going to be interesting as we look at this. Some of these things are going to have been talked about before in other topics. We've done a video on eating disorders. It's here on Mental Health Monday's YouTube channel. So some of these are going to be in the different videos as well. Burning your skin, that's what I was talking about. Inserting objects into your body. Thankfully vague. Hitting yourself or walls. I can't say walls, it's one of those words I have trouble with. Walls. But hitting yourself or walls, this outburst of anger, it's not seen as self-harm, is it? But it is. It's amazing. It goes in here. I think it's important that we highlight that one. So many people find themselves lashing out when the pressure gets too much. I think through the media, it's almost like when someone gets really angry, they smash something down or break. So we've seen so many memes of people breaking controllers and all that. I didn't realise that you can put that in self-harm and say that's a mental process that's not positive, that, you know, you could call that a mental health issue. Self-harming. A good example, I remember this that I did. I got so cross at Mario. I was about 9 years old. So cross at Mario that I tore my Michael Jackson hat up. I couldn't beat this level. I kept dying. I got the nearest thing to me that was destructible, which was this hat that I thought looked like Michael Jackson's hat. I just tore it in half. Oh, I was that cross. And then I was sad because my Michael Jackson hat, can't get that again. That's broken. That's done. That's ruined. Hitting yourself or self-harm. Ruined my own stuff. Didn't help myself. Self-harm, isn't it? Misusing alcohol, prescription and recreational drugs. Yes. Can definitely go into self-harm. There was a point where, I guess, how do I explain this? I explain it best by bringing up Cobain again. There's a point during the rock and roll. My microphone wants to wander over there, but I want it over here, please. Thank you. Oh, why does it do that? Alright, that's better. Point during the rock and roll where partying and getting wasted. I'm not going to say specifics of any specific event because we're on Twitch and I'm not getting myself kicked off, but where partying and getting wasted took on a new edge, where it was part of the self-harm, where it was part of the rock and roll scar, where I saw the people living that lifestyle and sort of admired them, where it became something that I could identify with. And of course it was fun. Not always fun. Not always fun, I'll tell you that. Going to the limits is not always fun. Holding on for dear life sometimes. But yeah, that's my little bit of point about that, and I've made it nicely. I don't have to go on and on about it. Self-destructive. Misusing alcohol, prescription and recreational drugs, which sometimes, and I shouldn't say this, should I, but I'm going to, sometimes they ain't even that bad. Some people are at the pub having their little drink, they go home, they don't beat their wife, they don't have a big hangover in the morning, and they don't have liver problems when they get to 80, and they don't have depression and anxiety and all that. Some people don't drink to excess. Some people handle things in different ways. It's quite normal for alcohol to be everywhere in our society. I wonder if everyone doesn't have an alcohol addiction, or if what I'm saying is wrong. Maybe some people, you know, it looks like they're just handling it, but because I'm not them. And maybe they do have the anxiety it causes. Maybe they do have the hangover. Maybe they do get angry and irritable and feel like they want another drink just to solve their feeling that they've got inside, which is solved by opening a can for some reason, and then that doesn't fix it. maybe it's okay to get high sometimes, safely. So I've said maybes, and I've not said definitely's about anything, but it's obvious, isn't it, that this self-harm, damaging yourself, can be achieved through something that outwardly can look quite, how should I say this? If you're not the person that's doing the self-harm, if you're with the person that's doing it, if they're getting really drunk, if they're, I can't say anything that's not, prescription, I suppose you can talk about prescriptions, can't you? If they're taking too many of their prescription, if they're getting out of control, out of hand, and it's part of their self-harm, it can actually harm the others around them as well, can't it? And it can seem to other people like they're just a bit rude, or they go too far, or let's not invite them to the next party because, do you know what I mean? But actually, it might be just as much of a cry for help as cutting themselves. Interesting. That's interesting. And of course, it leads to something, we need to do an episode on substance abuse, because it becomes a cycle that they fall into that can be the rest of their life. Pulling your hair. No one wants all their hair to fall out. People that get anxious pull it. It does. It makes them feel worse. It's a terrible cycle. But something that's just there, just easy to fiddle with as well. Yeah, pulling your hair. Maybe I'm not talking about that. Maybe I'm also talking about stronger pulling. I don't know. The next one's a bit more grown up, a bit more rude, but we're going to talk about it because, this is important. This is people's mental health. This is happening in schools. I absolutely guarantee you this is happening in schools. Having unsafe sex. Not treating yourself with respect, I should say. I think better than that is allowing people to disrespect you or to use you is a bigger way of saying that, I think. Or not caring about yourself enough to do something that might protect you. Maybe unsafe sex can go in the same bracket as not brushing your teeth in the morning, even though you know you should. You just don't care. You're just a bit sloppy. Just a bit of self-harm. Getting into fights where you know you'll get hurt. Gosh, I used to do that. Not often, not all the time, but I used to always think that I was going to lose, so I used to still go through the process, I guess. Not a lot. I'm not a big fighter. But, yeah. Some people might, I'm going to have to just pause on that a slight bit as well. Some people might seem to be aggressive, mightn't they? They might be the person in the pub who's causing all the problems. I'll talk about your comment in just a second. They might be the person in the pub that kicks off at the end of the evening. Maybe they're sad about something. Maybe it's a process that, instead of appearing to be really strong, maybe they're actually showing a vulnerability. Maybe they want to get hurt. Maybe they feel they deserve it. So it's okay to keep their head in. No, I'm not saying that. I think one of my biggest barriers to getting help was actually not admitting to myself that I had a problem. I used to tell myself, I'm only scratching. It's not real self-harm. There's a little quote there from somebody anonymous. So I think that's covered about, hasn't it? If you feel any of these things are new, cropping up in the old noggin as, I know somebody that does that. We're going to find out how to help them. If it's something that you may have done yourself and thought, I didn't really realise I was beating myself up over that, but I am. We're going to find out how to help. Safe or not, multiple sexual partners often don't out self-harm. They feel they don't deserve to be treated respectfully, so at least they can make someone else happy. Yeah, that's a nice way of summing it up, isn't it? Without anything terrible that needs to get blanked out of the chat. Yeah. Making somebody else happy through your own misery. Because you don't value yourself. It's about self-value, isn't it? Yeah, self-worth. Why do people self-harm? We'll find out now then. There are no fixed rules about why people self-harm. It can be really different for everyone. For some people, self-harm is linked to specific experiences and is a way of dealing with something that's either happening at the moment or which happened in the past. So that says it's about something that's happened. When someone says, is there something wrong? And you're like, I don't know, not really, maybe. If you know, you know. But if not, maybe you don't. Could be anything, something that happened. It's very vague. For others, the reasons are less clear and could be harder to make sense of. Well, there you go. Sometimes you might not know why you hurt yourself. If you don't understand the reasons for your self-harm, you're not alone and you can still get help. And I guess it's this process of reasoning, of working it out, that is part of the help. And maybe it's not something you're expected to know straight off the bat on your own. Any difficult experience can cause someone to self-harm. Common reasons include pressures at work, bullying, money worries, sexual, physical or emotional abuse. So those three there are all similar, Oh no, they're not. Okay. Pressures at school or work and money worries are similar. Pressures of life. Bullying, mental abuse, similar, people being mean to you. Get it. Bereavement, grief. You might turn to self-harm because of a loss in your life. And we've got to factor these into self-harm. Pressures at work. I can see why pressure might lead you to find a release valve, to feel overly pressured, need a release valve. I get that. Bullying, you don't feel you can talk to anyone, you feel you're ashamed, you're not good enough. Self-harm, I get that. Money worries, pressure, isn't it? Same thing. Sexual, physical or emotional abuse, same with the bullying, feeling you're not good enough, value, self-harm. Bereavement, it's a bit more of a surprise, isn't it there? Someone dies, you turn to self-harm. Where did that come from? Homophobia, biphobia and transphobia, that's a more complicated thing than just a thing we need, and it's something we need to alight on. Is that I'm not saying that it's not just the same as being bullied for being gay or bi or trans. It's not just that. It's that if you're going through these things yourself quietly without telling people, if other people don't seem to be having the same issues as you to work out who you are, those things can cause you to feel depressed, to self-harm. Those struggles mentally, physically, that you go through growing up, being a bit different. And we're all a bit different, aren't we? We've learned in modern society that you're not alone. It's just that people haven't been able to speak out as much, and there's a community you can find a lot of people who've got stories they can tell you that can help you feel you're not going through it alone. That's more out there now, literally out there, isn't it? But what I wanted to point out was it's not just that, somebody, homophobia, you get bullied so you feel bad. It's not just that. It's that you exist in a world where you are not accepted for who you are naturally, maybe by your parents or the society at large. And it's changing and it's getting better, great. But it's something you have to struggle with. That can lead to depression and self-harm. I get it. Breakdown of a relationship. I said that at the start. Every time something bad happened, like a crisis, like someone leaving me or breakup, yeah. Feeling less valued. Loss of a job, same thing, crisis point. An illness or health problem, similar to crisis point, similar to an event that's gone wrong, but a longer process. Low self-esteem in general, they've put there. An increase in stress in general. Difficult feelings such as depression, anxiety or numbness. So those general feelings that maybe we talked a lot on Mental Health Monday. I've talked a lot anyway. General feelings, that general depressive malaise. It is good that they put that there, not a specific thing that, it could be general. People don't know they're falling into a depression if it's not a main big thing, the nail on the head. I don't know why, but it's making me remember this story about once I did this lady's hair and she told me about this sad thing that I suppose I can, if I'm not mentioning the lady at all, I can say, basically her daughter had had a miscarriage and she was really upset about it. Now that was a clear event that she could say that was the thing that made me sad. But I remember like weeks later, asking her how she was feeling and stuff like that, and I don't think she could say I'm still feeling depressed because of XYZ, but I think she could say I still feel depressed. So those general feelings, it could be different. It could be an event, or it can be other things you can't put your finger on. You don't know are happening. You don't know playing into it, and until you hit that event, hit that wall, have that crisis. You don't know. You didn't realise that was building up and stuff like that. Self-harm proved to me I was real. I was alive. At times, it also silenced the chaos in my head, briefly pausing the repetitive flashbacks and body memories. So that was trauma. It says that certain actions can increase the likelihood of self-harm. So drinking or alcohol can increase the likelihood of self-harm. So if you're getting drunk or you're getting high, then maybe you're doing the self-harm after that, on the come down, or at night, for example. Sometimes people talk about self-harm as attention seeking. If people make comments like this, it can leave you feeling judged and alone. In reality, a lot of people keep their self-harm private, and it can be painful to have your behaviour misunderstood in this way. However, if you do self-harm as a way of bringing attention to yourself, remember there's nothing wrong with wanting to be noticed and to have your distress acknowledged and taken seriously. You also deserve a sympathetic response from those around you, including medical professionals. Who self-harms? I don't need to read that. Everyone. Not everyone, but anyone. People of all ages and backgrounds self-harm. There's no one typical person who hurts himself. Good. Glad we've seen that. But I think they're right in saying this as well. Exam stress, bullying and peer pressure is something that affects young people, for example, maybe more. And experiencing stigma and discrimination based on your sexual orientation is more common for members of the LGBTQI. What's I? They just keep adding letters, don't they? But, you know, there's different people in different stages of life that are going through different things that are maybe more, you know, you can maybe say, like, you know, as a child I used to suck my arms to the point of bruising them up and down and chewed my hair and nails, and now I realise it was probably self-harm. So strange it occurs to me after all these years. Do you know what? I used to, it's weird, when I discovered that it did bruise, I did that a bit, and then I was like, oh, this is, wow, that's interesting. I didn't do it a lot, I just did it once and brought up these blood blisters on my arm, and I was like, wow, that's impressive. Isn't my body remarkable? But yeah, like, you know, totally valid. Yeah, and chewing your hair and nails, it can seem like a stress reaction, but you know, it's not. It's physical to you, isn't it? It's physical to you. Yeah. Helping yourself now, right? Let's look at the help, because we've got 25 minutes, then the doggy has to have walks. Help is important. Let's at least have said it. This is mind.org. If you need to find this and read through it yourself for, you know, taking your time. Oh, intersex. Everyone's intersex, aren't they? Unless they're children. Children aren't intersex. I'm saying into sex. Look, anyway, jokes aside, understand your patterns. Learn to recognise triggers. Do you have a particular thought, or did a situation or person remind you of something difficult? Become aware of the urges. Racing heart, feelings of heaviness, strong emotions like sadness or anger, a disconnection from yourself or a loss of sensation. Yeah, as this is coming on, I now, later in life, can appreciate that my moods are not light switches, as I said earlier. If I feel that sadness or anger building, maybe it's time to change the situation, not let it flow down that path. Repetitive thoughts about harming yourself or how you might harm others. Unhealthy decisions like working too hard to avoid feelings. Recognising your urges helps you take steps towards reducing or stopping self-harm. Try writing down what you notice about your urges to help you spot them more quickly each time they come. That's a good point that has come up a lot of times on Mental Health Monday. Try writing things down, keeping a record, keeping a diary, especially of the most troubling aspects of this. If you're in a routine, you might not see it as a routine until you make the notes and see when it comes up. It might be something you didn't realise was causing it, maybe, but it will come out. It's definitely going to be helpful to have that noted down, yeah. Identify distractions. Distracting yourself from the urge is a way of giving yourself more breathing space. It can be done when you feel the urge or as soon as you become aware that you're hurting yourself. My favourite one was a positivity book, which was like a scrapbook filled with things that make me happy. Keep a diary. I've learned my emotional needs are not being met. I used self-harm because I didn't know how to express myself. A part was also attention. I was desperate for someone to notice me. Distracting yourself. We've talked about distractions in the past. If you're feeling self-hatred and want to punish yourself, write a letter from the part of you that feels the self-hatred then write back with as much compassion and acceptance as you can. That's really interesting because it recontextualizes this. Because what Snip said earlier, and just allow you to have whatever words you want today. What Snip said earlier about undervaluing yourself, so allowing people to take advantage, I guess. You often undervalue yourself, but would jump to help somebody else. It's often the case. So taking yourself into the third person here and writing back to yourself, it allows yourself to be that compassionate, that true compassion that you have, to show some of it to yourself, which is so hard, isn't it? Find creative ways to express the self-hatred through writing, songs or poetry, drawing, movement or singing. There you go. There you go. That was all the way back to where we started. Oh, isn't it? I've identified with these expressions of self-hate. Nowadays, I've got a guitar over there. I could play it and then you'd hate me too. But I write songs that help me to deal with things, yeah. I write songs that help me to deal with things. I'm not going to pick it up and prove it. It's just, I know it's there, you know it's there. Right, what am I doing? Tips. Do physical exercise, running or going to the gym, to express the anger that's turned in on yourself. That's good tips. I like that. Delaying self-harm. Another technique is to wait 5 minutes before you self-harm. This can feel difficult, so don't worry if you're not able to wait that long at first. If you can, slowly increase the time you wait and gradually build up the gaps between each time you self-harm. For some people, distracting or delaying feels far too simplistic. In this case, information on helping yourself long-term might make you feel more useful. So good. That's how to stop, when it's actually happening. We're going to look at the long-term as well, but I think that's a really good point. Delaying it. Okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it in 10 minutes. See how I feel then. That's a really good technique, because things might, you might give yourself time to think. You might give yourself time to step back. Things might feel different in 10 minutes. You might talk to somebody in that time. You might choose to talk to somebody. Helping yourself long term. I'm aware that I'm bouncing through these a little, but once I've bounced through these next couple, I really, I think it's really important we get to these contacts and treatment and support. Then we can have a little chat before I walk the dog. So let's bounce. How can I accept myself in the future? How can I help myself in the future? Accept your feelings, build your self-esteem, understand your self-harm in more detail, look after your general well-being and reach out for support. These are all bigger things. Accept your feelings, we talked about briefly at the start, and it's a lot more personal. I can't talk your feelings through on the internet now. You have to talk those things through with people you trust, or with counsellors or Samaritans or something like that. Then you have to learn to accept them. That's something you can see as a longer term project, I guess. But also, start the process now. They talk about challenging your feelings into creativity. I think that's good. Challenging your channeling your feelings into creativity. Yeah. Build your self-esteem. A bigger project, Mental Health Monday. Understand your self-harm in more detail. I think we've done enough on that today to be saying that we've confidently helped you to understand your self-harm in more detail. If you want to do more work on it, by all means. Look after your general well-being. Mental Health Monday, big tip. Lots of different ways. Definitely. Reach out for support. That's something that we said at the start. That's something that is a theme that runs through. It doesn't have to be the Samaritans. It doesn't have to be Lifeline. It doesn't have to be in our chat. Even Kurt Cobain, in his famous quote, "I hate myself and want to die," is in a way reaching out for some sort of support, isn't he? It's at least saying it like it is. Reach out for support. Put it out there. Yeah. I'll hold your hand. Inner child work with a professional was helpful for me. Difficult but helpful. Cool. what's available? What is actually available? Your GP, talking treatment, support groups, online support, treatment for scars. Of course, your GP, you can go to the doctor, you can get the ball rolling. In the UK, drastically underfunded mental health service means you're going to take a long time to get there. And actually, in reality, not wanting to sound harsh or to worry you, but 20%, maybe more, of people don't get the support they need. We've also got mind.org. In your area, there's a local mind.org. There's a mind charity, a mental health drop-in centre. There's not enough, but there are things. And if you're feeling like you're on this slope or down this road, getting that help early, seeing your GP now, getting the ball rolling is important, because you don't know how far this road's going to go. So getting on that system early, getting signed up to it might take a while, but it's there. So you've got a while. Things might get better, but they might get worse. Better off signing up to it, talking to the GP now. Talking treatments include cognitive behavioural therapy, psychodynamic therapy. We talked about talking treatments in a separate episode, but they're there. Talking treatments, counselling, talking to people. Always amazing how massive just talking can be. Support groups can be peer-led or facilitated. They may focus on specific issues and be more general. And again, we've seen how so many different things can play into this. It doesn't have to be a self-harm support group. It could be a thing that I'm feeling really sad about support group. Someone has died support group. Don't be afraid to use it. Don't be afraid to look on their Facebook or whatever it is, to have a chat to some people. Again, talking to people. Online support, we're doing that. We're here. I'm showing it you. Treatment for scars is important because it shouldn't be left out. Some people feel the scars from self-harm and are an important part of their journey, while others would prefer not to have them. Treatments are available for covering and reducing scarring. And like I said, I idolised the battle-mottled warhorse. I idolised that outward sign that you are coping through the stress because you've got the scars to prove it. So I guess some of my scars I wouldn't remove for the world. But there are others that are a bit unsightly, I guess is the word, unsightly, not attractive. If I could click my fingers and have that bit of my arm back, I'd just do that. So it is important to note, isn't it, that we all feel differently about these things, but it can be a part of your journey, like a badge of honour. But also it could be something you feel ashamed of, that you want to get rid of. And you can get rid of it. There's a treatment for it available on the NHS. No one's going to, it's not like you have to have, you don't have to spend your own money on expensive cosmetic surgery. Go to your doctor, talk about it. They can help. It's even that is important and big to say, isn't it? It's big to say. Things to consider when asking for help. Remember that whoever's supporting you is there to help you and listen to you. Sometimes a therapist or practitioner may ask you to commit to not self-harm during a course of treatment. It's important that you don't feel pressured into making decisions about this, and that anything you decide is realistic for you at the time. It can be tempting to try and cover up the extent of your self-harm or to lie about it altogether. While this is understandable, if you feel able to share your experience, it can make a big difference to how you feel. It can help to reduce feelings of shame and isolation, and will increase the chance of you receiving the support you need. It does take a lot of courage to reach out, and it might take more than one conversation to say everything you'd like to say. I like those paragraphs, they're good, aren't they? Even when I had to go to A&E, I've lied and pretended my injuries were accidents, which in hindsight is silly because I could have received some emotional support, but I hold such deep shame. Badge of wisdom, yeah, that's a better way of saying it. The scar's not fresh and new, it's old and healed. It can remind you of something you used to do and overcame. Yeah, I like that. Finding out someone you care about self-harms, whether someone tells you directly or you suspect that someone's hurting themselves, it can be difficult to know what to say and how best to approach the situation. Really important, this bit, if you're out there trying to help someone. Try not to panic or overreact. The way you respond to your friend or family member will have an impact on how much they open up to you and other people about their self-harm in the future. So stay cool, stay calm. Don't give them something to be more scared of by going, oh my chuffing, what? Ah, chuffing. And they're getting more wound up and anxious. Just stay calm. Remember that self-harm, and it's tough, isn't it? That's what Mental Health Monday is here for, to help you stay calm, isn't it? Remember that self-harm is usually someone's way of managing very hard feelings or experiences, and the majority of cases, it's different to suicidal feelings. It can be a precursor, of course, so bear that in mind. What helps? Try to be non-judgmental. Let the person know that you're there for them. Relate to them as a whole person, not just their self-harm. So that's a bit more, like the other two are straightforward. Try not to judge them. Don't say, this is bad, this is good. Why did you do that? Oh, you shouldn't be doing... Don't be doing that. Don't be doing that. Just listen, talk, repeat back to them how they feel so that they know that you've understood how they feel. Put it in your words, not theirs, so that they can say, yeah, no, that's right, that's how I'm feeling. You've understood me. Good. Relate to them as a whole person, not just their self-harm. Try not to let this one thing that is coming up now be who they are and what they do and everything. Try and think about if they're specifically, if you're trying to deal with, you think someone's self-harming or someone is and you're trying to help them. It's not just put down the thing or what's causing you to do that one thing, button I can press, fix that. It's a wider general issue, isn't it? So try and get this wider general feeling for what's going on. I think that's what they're trying to say. Try to have empathy and understanding about what they're doing. I've nailed that one already. You've got to say, you feel like this, you feel like that. Not, I think this and I think that. Let them be in control of their decisions. Offer to help them find support. Remind them of their positive qualities and things they do well. Try to have honest communication where you take responsibility for any fears you have. So what that means there as well is it's okay to say, this is making me upset, it's making me angry, or it's making me afraid. I'm worried about you, but taking responsibility for it means they're my feelings, that I'm afraid, I'm upset, I'm worried about you. I'm not going to make you feel even more worried about it. I'm not going to make you feel even more upset because of my feelings. Now you have to think about me. I'm going to take responsibility for my fears, and I'm going to say, okay, we're going to help you. So if I'm feeling these anxieties and fears about your behaviour, I'm going to try and help you. That's taking responsibility. That's cool, and that's why I'm doing it. You can say to your friend, this is important, and they put it at the end, but it's still pretty important. You can say to your friend, look, you might not like this, but I'm going to try and help you. Honestly, I'm going to take responsibility for my fears, and that means stepping up and trying to help you. I like that. Having friends I could ring up and talk to about everyday things gave me some respite from the despair. What doesn't help? It's interesting they put this as well. Yeah, what doesn't help? Trying to force a change. Acting or communicating in a way that threatens to take control away. Oh, that's interesting. If you won't stop doing that, I'm going to not let you have any of the... I won't even let you play with the... I won't let you cut your own food up. We'll take all the knives away. It's not an aspect of take the control away from them, they can't do it, it's solved. That might make them feel worse. Either ignoring their injuries or overly focusing on them. So once you've talked about it, it's talked about, but you should talk about it. Labelling self-harm as attention seeking, that's big. And I did want to gloss over it, but I'm going to not. Because we've got time now, we've got time. It's big, this one. It's big. It may well be the case that some people self-harm to a level that you don't think is serious enough, that they appear to just be looking for attention. And it might make you cross, because the people that really do self-harm, that do cut deep, aren't getting the attention because some crybaby bunting who's scratched themselves with the compass, that scratched just, oh, I've been self-harming, that wants these real badges of wisdom, is taking the limelight, is taking the shine off the true. Maybe. And Snips is right, they deserve your attention anyway. We all deserve a bit of attention. So if they'd started on that road, even if it's not good enough for you, even if it's not real enough for you, still down a path they don't want to be going on. So maybe that can be addressed by giving them some attention that they either deserve or crave, maybe it's not worth being angry at them. I get this whole sort of, there's a concept in America about the military, isn't there? Stolen valor, that those who have been through the war and, you know, through the actual real military, they deserve the honor. And if you pretend to do that, it's actually really, it's not just bad that you're pretending to be an army man and getting something free from Wendy's or half price meal. It's bad because you're stealing some of the honor from the people that died. You know, there's a deeper concept at play there. Often it's part of a political, this thing I've described, stolen valor, is actually part of a political aspect of looking at things. So I'm not going to go further into that, but the same concept applies to mental health, to self-harm, that those who are not doing it deep enough, who are not really hurting themselves enough, it seems to some people that they're stealing the valor, maybe, in some way. I think it's important to raise that you can't decide who's attention-seeking and who's really hurting themselves. Maybe it's the ones that you're not talking to because the squeaky wheel's getting the grease, okay. But if they're prepared to do that, there's a problem in their psyche anyway, and that needs addressing. I think you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater on this and say, oh, self-harming, oh, attention-seeking. You know, you can't let people who are attention-seeking colour the truth of self-harming, and you can't let the truth of self-harming take away or seem more real than the reality of someone self-harming for attention, but just not self-harming enough for you. You know, how far do they have to go before you'll say, okay, that's good enough now, you are really self-harming, let's deal with it? You know, it seems a bit silly, doesn't it? It seems a bit silly. So I'm glad we talked about that. It's 2% on the battery. Perfect storm today. I'm feeling really hot in this room. Got the windows closed. Wanted to keep this a bit in because it's personal, but also I'm broadcasting it on the internet. You know, honestly, this has made me feel a bit self-conscious. It's difficult. It's not something I honestly talk about really with my family and friends, even though I'm broadcasting on the internet and advising you do the same. I got through it. I did go to a counsellor, a therapist, did talk about it there. So I don't do that anymore. I feel that I can talk about it with you on the internet. But yeah, it's a big, you know, it's kind of a difficult thing, isn't it? And that reason at the end there as well, that attention seeking, you know. Certainly didn't want to start Mental Health Monday by saying, oh, look at me and me. Don't I deserve your attention? That's certainly not the process and cause for this. So I have angsted a little over talking about my experiences. Yeah. Wow. But, you know, I'm not dead. And I don't want to die. I don't hate myself anymore. So we were able to push through it and get somewhere much better. And it wasn't the self-harm that did it. It was part of a process, I guess. I had a friend who killed himself. Prior to that, he was accused of being emotional and attention-seeking by others. There you go, you see. What does it take? What would it take for somebody to prove themselves that they really weren't attention-seeking? How far would they have to go? I don't know. That's a real shame. I'm sorry about your friend. I've got friends who have killed themselves as well. And that's the main thing, isn't it? Mental Health Monday. These things can lead to worse things. We're going to help you deal with them. We help other people deal with them. Yeah. So you be good, my little puckos. You be good. And if you can't be good, you're naughty.